A lot of people think only bad games flop, but the truth is, some amazing titles sold terribly for no good reason. Today, I'm showing you a list of incredible games that completely failed in sales, even though they deserved way better. Some of these will definitely surprise you. Let's go. Guardians of the Galaxy is one of those rare cases where everything went right, except the sales. The game delivered exactly what fans wanted. Sharp humor straight out of the movies, clever dialogue, a fantastic soundtrack, and a surprisingly deep story centered on the team's relationships. Combat was smooth, visually flashy, and full of creative team mechanics that made every battle feel fun and chaotic in the best way. So, why did it flop? Honestly, it was mostly bad timing and bad luck. The previous Marvel game had disappointed many players, and that negative reputation spilled over into this one, even though it had nothing to do with it. Guardians launched with almost no hype, was quickly forgotten, and sold extremely poorly. Only months later did it start gaining recognition through word of mouth, people finally playing it and realizing how good it actually was. Even if you're not a big Marvel fan, this is one of the most charming and genuinely fun single-player action adventures of the last decade. It deserved way better than the numbers it got, and today it's remembered as a misunderstood gem that finally found its audience long after release. Sunset Overdrive is one of those games that should have exploded, but somehow slipped through the cracks, and honestly, it deserved way more love than it ever got. This wild, neon-soaked open-world shooter from Insomniac delivered pure chaos, parkour, humor, and some of the most stylish combat of its generation. It never took itself too seriously, and that was exactly the charm. But timing is everything. Back in 2014, Microsoft didn't push the marketing hard enough, and being an Xbox exclusive really hurt its reach. Even with all the creativity on display, the game barely made a dent in sales charts. Insomniac reportedly sold under 2 million copies, and the profit was shockingly tiny, which is crazy when you consider how energetic, fast, and genuinely fun the experience is. It's the kind of game that keeps aging well, like a cult classic waiting for people to finally get it. The art direction still pops, the traversal system feels better than most modern titles, and the humor, still on point. Sunset Overdrive was a victim of bad luck, bad timing, and small visibility, not bad quality. If anything, it remains one of the most unique open-world shooters ever made, just one that never got its second chance. The Last Guardian is one of those games that lived under a shadow for almost a decade. Delays, rumors of cancellation, engine overhauls, everything. And when it finally launched, many players didn't know what to expect. But what we got was something rare. A quiet, emotional adventure built around trust, patience, and the bond between a boy and a massive, feathered creature named Trico. This wasn't a flashy blockbuster. It wasn't trying to compete with big open worlds or cinematic action set pieces. Instead, it focused on atmosphere, puzzles, and the slow, natural growth of a friendship. And for those who connected with it, The Last Guardian hit incredibly hard. But for the general audience, not so much. The controls were clunky, Trico didn't always obey, and the pacing felt strange for players used to fast, modern experiences. Sales reflected that. It performed far below expectations for a major PlayStation exclusive. Still, the game has a soul that very few titles manage to capture. Trico feels alive, sometimes stubborn, sometimes scared, always expressive, and the ending, beautiful and heartbreaking. The Last Guardian didn't fail because it was bad. It failed because it dared to be different, slower, more intimate. And years later, it remains unforgettable for those who gave it a chance. Spec Ops. The line is one of those games people still talk about even though it absolutely flopped when it launched. And the crazy part? It didn't fail because it was bad, it failed because players had no idea what it really was. The marketing sold it like a basic military shooter, another turn your brain off and shoot enemies kind of experience. But once you actually played it, you realized it was something completely different and way darker. Instead of power fantasies, Spec Ops delivered guilt, consequences, and a story that hits you like a truck. It's a descent into madness, inspired by Apocalypse Now and Heart of Darkness, where every decision feels heavy and every moment pushes you closer to the edge. But that depth, that emotional weight, wasn't what the mainstream FPS audience was prepared for. So the game sold poorly, even though critics praised its narrative and moral complexity. Gameplay-wise, it was simple, serviceable, but nothing groundbreaking. And because most players expected flashy set pieces, they ignored the real heart of the game. Today, Spec Ops: The Line is remembered as a cult classic, one of the boldest anti-war statements ever made in gaming. A commercial failure? Sure, but artistically, almost untouchable. Ryse, Son of Rome, is that game everyone remembers for how stunning it looked, but almost no one actually bought. When it launched as an Xbox One exclusive, it was basically a visual showcase, a cinematic, brutal, Roman action-adventure that felt like playing through a blockbuster movie. The combat was simple, but satisfying. The presentation was incredible, and for many players, it was one of the first next-gen experiences that truly looked next-gen. So, what went wrong? Well, exclusivity didn't help. The Xbox One had a rough launch, and Ryse got dragged down with it. Critics also hit it hard for being repetitive, even though plenty of people found it genuinely fun for what it was, a short, punchy, visually jaw-dropping adventure. When it finally came to PC, it gained a second life and a solid fanbase, proof that the game had potential from the start. But business-wise, the numbers never reached what Microsoft or Crytek wanted. Around 1.3 million units in 3 years just wasn't enough, sealing the fate of any sequel, which is a shame, because Ryse had the foundation to grow into something much bigger. Today, it stands as one of the most beautiful, failed games ever made, a flawed gem that deserved a lot more love. Alien Isolation delivers a level of horror and immersion so precise and relentless that few games ever come close. Even though it received a lot of praise from players and sold over 2 million copies in its first year, Sega still considered its performance below expectations and, unbelievably, even labeled it a commercial failure. Maybe the expectations were too high, but given the level of quality on display, it absolutely deserved more success. The real issue is that Isolation is, at its core, a niche experience made for fans who appreciate the slow-burn terror of the original films. It didn't help that some review sites called the game overly long, slow, or repetitive. Still, its authenticity is undeniable. The game perfectly recreates the look and atmosphere of the classic movie from the late 70s with incredible attention to detail. The tense gameplay, built entirely around stealth mechanics and an unpredictable AI, keeps players constantly on edge, since the alien reacts dynamically to every move you make. The sound design is also outstanding, layering dread into every moment. Despite the game's commercial challenges, its immersive world-building and intense, moment-to-moment gameplay make Alien Isolation one of the finest sci-fi horror stealth experiences ever created. Splinter Cell: Blacklist arrived with the kind of confidence you'd expect from a franchise at the top of its game, but the reaction it got was far more complicated. Even though the mechanics were polished, the missions creative, and the stealth action blend stronger than ever, something felt off to longtime fans. The series had built its legacy on tension, shadows, and silence, yet Blacklist leaned harder into fast-paced action to appeal to a broader audience. That shift immediately caused friction. Several missions take place in broad daylight, stripping away the dark, calculated infiltration style that defined Splinter Cell. And the decision to replace Sam Fisher's iconic voice actor only added to the backlash. The game still sold over 2 million copies, which sounds good on paper, but for Ubisoft's expectations, and for a brand as respected as Splinter Cell, it wasn't nearly enough. Because of that, Blacklist unintentionally became the final chapter of Sam Fisher's classic era. It's a sleek, well-crafted stealth experience that deserved far more recognition, and even today, it stands as one of the most polished entries in the franchise, just one that arrived at a moment when fans wanted something different. Neo: The World Ends With You is one of those sequels that deserve to explode in popularity but somehow slipped through the cracks. The original DS game became a cult classic, mixing stylish combat with one of the most unique settings in JRPG history. So when Neo finally arrived, Fans expected the series to finally get the recognition it always deserved. Instead, it faced a quiet release window, minimal marketing, and a modern audience that didn't realize how special this universe really is. And that's the real shame, because Neo delivers exactly what made the original unforgettable. Fast, chaotic combat, characters full of charm, and a version of Shibuya that feels alive in every corner. The new pin-based battle system is flashy, energetic, and way more intuitive than people expected. The soundtrack? Easily one of the best in the genre, loud, stylish, and impossible not to vibe with. Even the story, full of twists and high-stakes emotional moments, carries that signature mix of style and heart that defines the series. But despite all of that, the game's sales were surprisingly low. Many players never realized the sequel even launched, and Square Enix quietly moved on after calling its performance disappointing. For a game this stylish, creative, and polished, it's a tough fate, especially for fans who waited over a decade to return to this world. Shadow of War should have been a victory lap, the kind of sequel that takes everything fans loved and pushes it to the next level. The first game was a surprise success, praised for its Nemesis system, its fluid combat, and its dark take on Tolkien's world. So naturally, expectations for the sequel were sky high. And honestly, the core game delivered. The combat was sharper, the world was bigger, the Nemesis system was even wilder, and the fortress assaults were some of the most exciting battles in any action RPG of that era. But then came the disaster, the infamous loot boxes. Before players could even enjoy the new mechanics, the launch was buried under controversy. The progression system felt manipulated, the grind was heavier than it needed to be, and the community instantly turned on the game. And once the reputation damage was done, there was no going back, even after Warner Bros. Removed the microtransactions and fixed most of the issues. And that's the sad part. Underneath all the noise, Shadow of War is actually fantastic. The orc personalities, the betrayals, the alliances, the fortress sieges, the game is full of unforgettable moments. It should have been celebrated as one of the most innovative action RPGs of its time, but instead it became a cautionary tale about monetization gone wrong. If you skipped it because of the backlash back then, it's absolutely worth revisiting today. Alpha Protocol tried to push the boundaries of what an RPG could be, only to discover that innovation can come with a heavy cost. Developed by Obsidian, it blended espionage, third-person shooting, branching narratives, and heavy consequence-based choices into one ambitious package. And honestly, the ideas were brilliant, the execution, not so much. At launch, the game was dragged down by clunky gunplay, stiff animations, and a mountain of bugs. Players expecting a smooth action experience bounced off immediately, even though Alpha Protocol was never meant to be a traditional shooter. Its real strength was the narrative system. Every decision mattered, alliances shifted constantly, and your behavior shaped missions, dialogue, and even entire story paths more dramatically than most modern RPGs. But ambition wasn't enough to save it. Sales were low, reviews were mixed, and the planned sequel was canceled before it even started. Only years later did players look back and recognize how ahead of its time it really was a flawed gem that dared to be bold when the industry wanted safe bets. Even today, Alpha Protocol stands as one of the most unique spy RPGs ever made, just one that the world wasn't ready for. Titanfall 2 is one of those sequels that did absolutely everything right and still got buried for reasons completely outside its control. Respawn refined the formula to perfection. Fast movement, wall running that feels like silk, mechs that hit like trucks, and a single-player campaign that's still considered one of the best FPS stories ever made. Every mission brings a new mechanic or twist, keeping the pacing tight and constantly surprising. The game's Titan companion, the towering machine that fights alongside you like a loyal partner, became iconic overnight. The level design was genius, and the combat flowed better than most shooters released even today. Titanfall 2 had heart, personality, and some of the most satisfying gunplay of the generation. It should have been a massive hit, but then came the disaster. EA launched it sandwiched between Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, practically guaranteeing it would be ignored. Players were overwhelmed, marketing was confused, and a masterpiece slipped through the cracks. Sales were disappointing compared to its potential, but those who played it know the truth. Titanfall 2 is a modern classic, a top-tier FPS, and easily one of the greatest games that failed despite deserving so much more. Deus Ex entered the market already carrying the weight of controversy, and that shadow followed it straight through release. Before players could even experience the game, the infamous pre-order campaign had already damaged its reputation, turning hype into hesitation. And when it finally launched, things didn't get easier. Despite the incredible world building, the story ends abruptly, clearly holding back content for future DLC that never fully materialized. But once those frustrations fade, what remains is one of the strongest immersive sim RPGs ever made. Its vision of a divided society where mechanically augmented humans live as outcasts is atmospheric, sharp, and uncomfortably believable. The level design is exceptional, packed with branching paths, secrets, and choices that actually matter. Prague alone feels like a living, breathing puzzle box. Combat and stealth are equally satisfying, letting you build Adam Jensen into the kind of operative you want to play. The side quests are outstanding and add emotional depth that the main story sometimes avoids. Over time, patches and DLC completed the experience, turning what began as a fractured launch into a standout gem. Mankind Divided may have failed commercially, but it remains a must-play, a brilliant RPG that deserved far better than the rocky road it got. 11 incredible games that failed in sales but absolutely delivered where it matters. Gameplay, story, creativity, and pure fun. These titles may not have gotten the recognition they deserved, but now you know exactly why each one of them is worth your time. If you've played any of these hidden gems, tell me in the comments or share another amazing game that flopped but shouldn't have. I love discovering new, forgotten masterpieces. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.